In the Deep South, people are funny about those that don't quite fit in with society. They aren't rude about it. No, they'll talk in hushed whispers behind closed doors. Take that man out on the corner, for instance. You know the one. He's always standing there at the same time every day, in the same dirty clothes, with the same vacant stare on his face. Nobody will come out and say what everyone's thinking, that he's crazy. No, they'll just give him sidelong stares and be sure to not get too close to him. People in the Deep South, well, they think stuff like that's contagious, sort of like the flu. They'll do anything to avoid it. My own family had someone like that. My uncle, rest his soul. Paranoid schizophrenia, they called it. Most of the time he was content to sit on the back porch and drink his coffee and smoke his cigarettes, occasionally laughing at something no one could hear. Yeah, sometimes he talked to himself too. But then there were the times when he wasn't so nice. He shot up the backyard with a shotgun once, claiming there were people coming after him. He could be violent when his head got too loud for him. I learned at an early age that it was best to just go along with whatever my uncle said. I didn't want him mad at me after all, not having seen what he was capable of when someone pissed him off. I was a bit of an odd child. My parents had split ways when I was 9, and my mom had raised me. Maybe the divorce was the catalyst for me. It wasn't too long before the school was having me sent for testing, and then stuck me in a special class. They said I was antisocial. I was awkward around other kids, didn't know what to say or how to form friendships. I had my head in the clouds too much. I was always reading something or another, mainly ghost stories. Ghost stories, back then, had a sort of appeal to them that I both loved and hated. I loved to read about the headless horsemen, ghost cats and dogs, selkies, banshees, but I hated the fact that they unnerved me. It seemed so silly to me at the time. Why on earth was I creeped out by fictional characters? They couldn't hurt me after all. So I resolved to get over that irrational fear. Junior high was when my life took a turn for the worse. Due to personal issues at home, I flunked the 6th grade and attempted suicide. Back then, no one really understood what depression was, or autism. I was a loner. I didn't have any real friends, and thanks to wearing hand-me-downs, I was bullied something awful. Oh, and let's not forget that my face broke out like a topographical map of Mars on top of all that. My dad had walked out of my life. Mom worked all the time just to make sure we had a good life, and I had no one to talk to about how I felt. I started seeing things, and was more than a little afraid that mental illness had bit me right square on the ass and took a huge chunk out of me. But I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want the family looking at me the way they looked at my uncle. It wasn't until I reached high school that I finally found a small crowd I fit in with. Oh, we were misfits. There was the nerdy metalhead, the bisexual but still in the closet, the nympho, and then me. We all had the same taste in music, and that was part of the draw we had to one another. But the bigger part was that we all had a taste for the supernatural. We formed our own little amateur ghost hunting group, and since Daniel and Blair had vehicles, Rose and I would ride with whichever of them could get out for the night, and we'd explore places said to be haunted. Most places were a bust, to be honest. like the house way out on Route 10. Locals had said that if you were there after midnight, you'd see a woman wearing a bloody gown walk past the living room window. We sat out there for 3 hours before we finally said fuck it and left. Then there were the train tracks, out on the road past the old cemetery. The legend behind the tracks was that a woman had been running from someone, ran out of gas, and the train had come along and hit her, and killed her. We were a bit skeptical of that, but hey, it was something to check out, so off we went. Now for this one, you had to arrive in a vehicle from the 40s. Blair had his uncle's old step-side Ford, so we all piled into it like sardines. Damn, it was cold that night. I remember that. And that old truck didn't have heat. I was grateful to be sort of in the middle. We got to the tracks, parked directly on them, and waited. And since it was such a rural road, and it was so late at night, we didn't worry about anyone coming to run us off. We sat there in the truck on those tracks, joking around with one another and cutting up for I don't know how long. Daniel was sitting at the passenger side door, and he had just turned his head to look at Blair to say something. The smile abruptly left his face and his brow furrowed. "Hey, what is that?" he asked. We all turned to look, of course. Those tracks ran back into the woods about 100 yards from the road, on the left side. In those trees, about 20 feet off the ground, was a dark orange light. It looked to be the size of a basketball, and it was slowly gliding through the trees towards us. It didn't bounce up and down, nor did it flicker. That ominous orange ball just rolled forwards, with no deviations at all from its course, and that course was straight for us. "We're all seeing this, right?" I asked, feeling goosebumps rise. "Yeah," Rosa murmured, watching the light without blinking. Suddenly, I wasn't so sure I wanted that light to reach us. Something in my gut told me this was a really bad fucking idea, and we needed to bail. "I think we should go," I stated, a cold shiver creeping up my spine as that damned light got closer to the end of the tree line. "Hey, you wanted us to come out here," Blair pointed out, scowling at me. When he saw the look on my face, though, he quit scowling. "You're serious?" I nodded emphatically. "Get us the hell out of here now," I said. "Whatever that is, we don't need to know about it." Blair fired up the truck and roared off the tracks down the road. I couldn't help but look back, that cold feeling not leaving me. I couldn't see the light now, but I didn't trust that it wouldn't be waiting for us if we went back. It was a stroke of luck that the road had another way back to the main road to get us home. That damned light stayed burned into my mind for a long time afterwards. I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't about to go back and find out. For a long time afterwards, I couldn't look at my mom's antique lamp without shuddering. It was the same color that light had been. We explored a few more places after that, mostly abandoned buildings and graveyards. There was a bridge or two, though, also. There was one way out in the country. It had been built back in the 1800s to cross the creek. Flooding had destroyed it, but they'd built it back exactly the way it had been, in the exact same spot. He said if you went on the right night, at the right time, you could hear a child crying. A woman had taken her little daughter there, and jumped into the raging floodwaters with her. Her body had been recovered a few days later, but the little girl had never been found. Then There was the other bridge. A hulking metal structure with wooden beams to drive on. I didn't like that bridge. It didn't make me feel safe driving over it. Well, we'd gone out to it late one night and parked on the side of the road. We were all standing on the bridge, looking down at the water beneath us when Blair spotted something on the far bank. "What the fuck is that?" I don't know what we saw. My mind wouldn't even attempt to process it, other than it was black and vaguely humanoid, but moved in a way a human could never move. It skittered down to the water and started across, and that was when we decided it was time to go. We all jumped into Daniel's car, and he sped off, slinging gravel everywhere behind us. Hell, he didn't slow down until we were 5 miles back down the main highway. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, looking at all of us in turn. "Dude, I don't fucking know," Blair said, still a bit distressed by what we'd seen. "I didn't even know that bridge had a history. I was guessing when I said we should check it out." "Well, that was a damn good guess," I stated, shivering. "I don't think I'm sleeping tonight," Rosa murmured. "I don't know that I'll ever be able to get that thing out of my head." "Turn on some music and leave your lamp on," I told her. "It's what I had to do for a few nights after that incident with the tracks. I thought long and hard about making Mom's lamp disappear. You know what it looks like." "Same color as that light," Rosa said and sighed. "Okay, but if I can't sleep, you'd better answer your damn phone." "Mom's working tonight, so I'll be able to," I replied. Mom worked a 12-hour swing shift, and that was how I was able to go ghost hunting so much. She left for work around 6 in the evening, and she didn't come home until after 7 the next morning. It worked out well. I was usually in school when she was sleeping, so I didn't bother her any, and the weekends, I'd be off with friends. Mom trusted that I wouldn't get into any trouble, which was a good thing. If she'd known we were out all hours at some of the places we'd been to, she might have frowned at that. Spring faded into summer, and then we were out of school and free to do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. Daniel, Blair, Rosa, and I gathered up at my house late one evening after Mom had gone to work, to discuss the places we'd been to and talk about places we hadn't been to yet. We'd already pretty much explored the tiny town we lived in, so it was time to start branching out and going further away. "Daddy says the nut house out off Redbud has a couple of buildings that people have seen things in," Blair said. "No," I told him at once, my face grim. "No, I am not going there." My uncle had spent plenty of time out at that place, something I'd never told any of my friends. They didn't even know about my uncle. The shame of having someone in my family that was mentally ill enough to keep my mouth closed about it. They were the first true friends I'd had, and I didn't want to lose them. There was no way I wanted to go back to that place, though, to relive the memories of seeing my uncle there. "Why?" Daniel asked, curious. I shook my head. "Just driving by it makes me feel sick," I lied. "I can't go in there." They didn't press the issue, and we moved on to other places. Understand, I didn't doubt that some of those buildings had ghosts attached to them. The place was fairly old and had originally been part of a manufacturing facility, so I was pretty sure some of the workers had been killed on the job, and then there were the patients who died also. But I still couldn't bring myself to go looking for old ghosts out there. Rosa got her license that summer, and her mother gave her use of the car when she didn't need it. So now we had a third driver to ride around with. I had my license too, but Mom's car was a two-seater, and we would have never all fit in it, so I never asked. Rosa's mom was a nice woman, and she always had a smile for us when we showed up, no matter if we'd called first or not. "Hey, Miss Diaz, do you know any good ghost stories?" Blair asked her one day when we'd gone over there to hang out with Rosa. She pursed her lips and thought for a moment. "You know, Blair, that old asylum about an hour south of us has a lot of stories floating around about it," she finally replied. "They aren't good stories either. Made my blood curdle just hearing about the place. The old doctor that worked there is supposed to still walk the hallways, looking for patients to experiment on, and you can hear the screams late at night." She shivered and shook her head. "I wouldn't go there were I you guys. That place is bad business. Nothing good could come from going there." The state sanitarium. God, just hearing her talk about it made my hair stand on end. I'd heard the rumors growing up about how Dr. Jebediah had done lobotomies and electroshock therapy on those poor souls, trying to cure them of their illness. He hadn't used any anesthesia for the lobotomies, or any pain meds either. Rumor also had it that he forced the patients to endure ice baths and boiling hot showers too, when they were acting out. No, Dr. Jebediah had not been a nice man. Not at all. I was pretty damn thankful my uncle had never been sent there, even though the good doctor had been dead and gone for nearly 100 years now. No, the state sanitarium was a cesspool of violence, sorrow, and evil as far as I was concerned. They'd shut it down about 15 years ago. The feds had done an investigation and found that there weren't any actual psychiatrists working the place. They found a lot of dead bodies also. Bodies that were in various stages of decomposition. It was a scandal that had rocked our state for years. "So, what do you think?" Blair asked later, looking at all of us. "About what?" Daniel asked. "The asylum," he replied. "Road trip?" "Hell no," Rosa said immediately, shaking her head. "No, if Mama doesn't want us there, well, I'm going to listen to her about it. You saw the way she looked just talking about it." I nodded. "I'm with Rosa on this, dude," I said. "That place, even angels fear to tread there." Blair looked at Daniel then, eyebrow quirked. "You in, man?" he asked. Daniel flattened his lips out and shook his head. "Not this time," he replied. "Fine then," Daniel huffed, looking annoyed. "Guess we won't go then." I admit, even though I didn't want to go to the place, I did have a sort of morbid curiosity about it. I needed to know the full history, but I didn't know why. Maybe I hoped that those rumors about Dr. Jebediah were just that. Rumors. Rosa and I were hanging out alone, just riding around and talking about various things. As she headed towards the city, I looked at her. "Do you mind going by the library?" I asked. "No," she replied. "But why do you want to go there?" "I need to look up the old asylum," I told her. "I need to see for myself whether all those rumors are real or just old tales meant to make kids behave."